now we're going to be going on to our next event, and we have a really special opportunity here. So we're going to bring up Laura Anthony in a minute, who's going to introduce our keynote speaker. And the topic is repair. And it could not be a more important time. I mean, I think we were all so inspired by Alejandra's keynote this morning. Peter's keynote will really segue into that very well, because the first thing we obviously need to do is reuse and repair in order to get to zero waste. And these are foundational skills that we had, that our mothers and grandmothers had, that folks who live close to the earth, indigenous peoples know, and so we just need to get back to our roots, get back to thinking about reuse and repair first, and kind of discarding that throwaway society. So with that, I'm going to ask Laura to come up on stage to introduce Peter.
Hi there. Welcome, everybody. What a great session so far. We just had the environmental justice, and that was very powerful and very emotional. So I hope everyone enjoys it. Now, this one is, the next one, keynote, is a very close to my heart. And so I am honored to introduce the next keynote speaker. I met Peter Mewey in 2016 when I was a librarian at a local public library system. I was given an opportunity to start a STEAM-based innovative program for the public. Having some environmental and event planning background, I was introduced to a very exciting, community-driven, tax-oriented program around repair, which was the Fix-It Clinic. I found the Fix-It Clinic blog and was basically told you everything you need to know to start your own Fix-It Clinic in your community. Being a little extra as I am, I took it and ran with it through advice and guidance and support the entire time from Peter. He was actually sent someone down with a banner to help me my first day. It was awesome. Peter has been a mentor and a friend for over 6 years, seems more like 60. Peter Mewey is the founder of the Fix-It Clinics, which conveys critical thinking and troubleshooting skills that through both in-person and virtual events. Since conception, there's been over 750 in-person Fix-It Clinics around the world. Peter, how many cities is Fix-It Clinics? Do you know how many cities approximately in the nation so far?
Dozens. I mean,
dozens.
I would, yeah.
A lot. And more pop up every day.
Yeah.
Because of the repair revolution is here, folks. What are Fix-It Clinics? Well, now bear with me because this is very wordy. There are pop-up style event that promotes education, entertainment, empowerment, education, and ultimately enlightenment through all ages. Do it together, hands-on, fix and learn, community-sponsored and community-led discovery, assembly, troubleshooting, and repair. Whew. Peter is a leading practitioner in lean innovation, applying agile methods for software development to hardware durable goods. He has been a keynote speaker and presented at several technology and environmental based organization, and has received numerous awards to the contribution to the movement. Now it's my honor to hand the mic over to someone I can call a friend, Peter Mewey.
Thank you, Laura. All right, let me start sharing here. I think that's what I do.
Did you want to share your own slides there, Peter? Because Rose has them up.
Yeah, so that I can whip through them. That was the plan.
Yeah, sure. Okay, well, Rose, you stop sharing and you let Peter share.
All right, so it's going to say change to presenter. Is that what happens? So I become the presenter?
You just go down to that share button at the bottom. You got it? Yeah, you got it. Perfect. All right, seamless. Take it away, Peter.
Okay, great. So I always open with a shout out to the volunteer Fix-It coaches who make this possible. I mean, it's their altruism, their generosity, their enthusiasm that makes these programs what they are. So sometimes I think I just started this so I could get myself some good friends, honestly. So we're here now in the most wonderful time of the year. We're in the season of giving and getting. There's all sorts of new stuff headed our way because advances in electronics and technology have resulted in ongoing whiz-bang features making their way into common everyday items. There were Bluetooth remote-controlled oscillating space heaters. There are Bluetooth remote-controlled oscillating toothbrushes. And it's great when they're new and novel, but all too quickly we lose interest and we don't want it anymore. And it ends up here. It goes from the house to the garage to the curb where we hope somebody will take it. Or it ends up here at the land of misfit appliances at the thrift store. So the original owner is long gone, so we don't know anything about the state of the item at that point. Does it still work? Where are all the accessories? Where's the remote? And it speaks to our challenging relationship with our consumption, with our stuff. Even though it's worthless to us now, we don't really want to have it go to the landfill. We're hoping someone will take it and continue to use it, but we don't know what the provenance of it is. So at least in those situations, we're trying to find new homes for the items, but many people will just sneak these items into the trash and hope that the general waste handling process in their community will figure it out for them. But as we have more and more items of this type that have those tiny lithium-ion batteries in them, they can spontaneously combust. I mean, it doesn't take much. It can be one of a Bluetooth earbud or an electric toothbrush. And trash fires like this are becoming more and more common. So I know this time of year it's cold. We want to cozy up to a warm fire, but I don't think this is what we intend. I mean, we want chestnuts roasting on an open fire, not batteries. So let's raise a toast to those brave and hardy souls in our communities who try and fix and keep it working. Their reasons for repairing are different. Maybe the item isn't available anymore, like the commercial milkshake machine on the left. Or maybe it has some provenance or sentimental value or emotional value. I mean, for those of you with kids, the toy industry is like the fashion industry. If a kid has a favorite toy and it breaks, you can't buy it anymore often. You can't just go to the store. So I don't think somehow if Santa brings her replacement Spider-Man walkie-talkies, that's going to cut it. And as much as we try to have things repair, sometimes we're not successful. Sometimes people want to keep something around because they like it. It was working for them and it's fine, and they just want to keep using it. But I want you to take a mental snapshot of that disassembled iron on the right and think about, like at one level, it's a miracle of the modern global manufacturing supply chain that we can make such a highly integrated and elegant device available to the average consumer. But, it's also, you look at that, there's all the different materials, the various compositions of plastics and chemistries of plastics, the metals, the electronics. It's going to be very difficult to take those constituent parts and return them to some input stream that allows them to maintain the same functionality that they had when they were constituted into the iron that they once were. So at this point, if we're ever going to get to zero waste, to the coming future circular economy and sustainable economy, the incumbent thing is for us to keep that thing at its highest utility possible for as long as possible. And that's why I'm here to encourage you to promote and facilitate repair in your communities through Fix-It clinics or any repair model. But I'm going to try and convince you why we think we've got the right one. We put out tools in the middle of the room. We invite your neighbors and the general public to come in with the broken stuff. And we have other helpful neighbors, the Fix-It coaches, circulating around the room to help with the disassembly, troubleshooting, and repair. It's non-sectarian, non-denominational, apolitical. Everybody's got broken stuff. And in an ideal Fix-It clinic, the roles of participant and Fix-It coach blur, and everybody's just helping everybody else out. And so at some level, the repair becomes a serendipitous side effect of the main part of the process, which is that we're building community and we're trying to convey critical thinking and troubleshooting skills way beyond the broken thing that's in front of you. So it's really important that that's the part that's conveyed. It's about trying to teach everyone how to repair, and not about just sort of teaching people or giving people a fish. We want to teach people how to fish. As part of that, we emphasize that the item owner is in charge of affecting their own repair, because when the item starts working again and they materially participated in the repair, it's so empowering, confidence building, that you want everyone to fully experience that. It's not just for adults. How low can we go? Like, what's the lowest age that someone can get something out of this? So this is a 7th grader that fixes smartphones. We taught these 6th graders how to repair and maintain the 3D printers in their classroom. And we love it when fixing families show up. So as long as there's appropriate adult supervision, the age is pretty low. The pandemic presented us with an opportunity to experiment with going both virtual and global at the same time. And yeah, there was some concern about whether we could do repair totally hands-off. I mean, we do it a lot hands-off in the in-person events, but totally hands-off. But it's been such a resounding success that it's redefining what the in-person events are like. So now you can deploy in your community ubiquitous and pervasive repair and create a hybrid model. And so that's what I'm going to advocate going forward. So we have these intergalactic Zoom fix-it clinics with repairs and repairers from around the world participating. And we found people with industrial strength Zoom accounts, you know, the universities and the academic institutions. So Harvard, CU Boulder, UC Berkeley, Lund University in Sweden. And we use them as the basis for doing this, just so we don't want to have to have trouble with bandwidth issues, because we have a lot of people participating. And we've been able to affect repairs that we would not have been able to affect even in an in-person activity, because we get to crowdsource. We get the best minds from around the planet coming to bear. This fan is in Millbrae, California, but repairers from around the world were looking at its circuit board, and they figured out there were burned components. A guy in Belgium, a guy in the UK figured out what the values of those components were. A repairer in Minneapolis was able to figure out how we could order the parts. Another repairer nearby who worked nearby drove a soldering kit to the person with the fan. It was just an amazing example of how we could crowdsource repair globally around the planet. And this is happening on a regular basis. Here's another one. So the other thing we can do is see items that would be too large or unwieldy to bring to an in-person event. So this is an IKEA couch in a living room in Toronto, Canada. And we fixed that with help from repairers in Hudson Valley, New York, and in Lund, Sweden. At least, I remember those two at the very least. So all of a sudden, we can support repair and repairers all around the planet. Northern New Mexico, Palestine, Scotland, Paris, France, Berkeley, California, Belmont, Massachusetts, London, England, and Melbourne, Australia. Sandeep got up at 4:30 in the morning, his time. Now remember, Australia had much stricter lockdown policies than us, so he needed help with his sewing machine. He couldn't go out, but even if he could go out, there were no sewing machine stores. There was no place for him to get repair of any sort. So as we ease back into in-person events, we are going to combine the in-person and the virtual component in our offering. So these are high schoolers who want to start repairing in their community. So we equip them with this rudimentary disassembly and troubleshooting toolkit. And everything you're looking at there, the tools there, it's under $200. I think the plastic boxes themselves were about 40 or 50 bucks. I'm just trying to convey the idea that this is not expensive to start to explore repair in your community. And then instead of Zoom, we're using the Global Fixtures server on Discord to bring the remote repairers in. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Discord, it's this platform originally developed for gamers and gaming, and all the teens and young adults use it. So it's their platform of choice, and we've repurposed it for repair by standing up the Global Fixtures server on it. There's 450 or so repairers from around the world on there now. And so now, instead of having to schedule a Zoom, we can support 24/7 asynchronous, around the clock, around the world repair. And so your communities can do this now. As soon as my presentation's over, you could go join this server, and we invite you or anybody in your community who has something broken, they can just go and sign up with it. And these high schoolers in a different high school fixed this stand mixer for a local community food bank using Discord. So remember, nobody interacted with these high schoolers in person. The entire process was transacted using Discord's chat, video, and voice features. Now I'm onboarding some middle schoolers from a tiny town, Alberton, Montana, an hour outside Missoula, so really remote. So these are places that would really have very scant hope of ever holding an in-person community repair event, but now they can be part of this global network, this global group of people who are all fixing online. During the pandemic, we also launched this idea of repairing our shared public property, our community assets, alongside individually owned items. So if you remember early in the pandemic, the national ventilator stockpile was in some state of disarray. Nobody knew exactly what the state was. And we thought all the med techs would go out sick. So we stepped up and launched rapid response repair to fix anything in our civilization that, was in a problem state of any sort. And look, yeah, we wanted to be the heroes and fix the ICU equipment, but we were happy to be fixing anything that would make a first responder or critical care worker's life easier. It could be as mundane as the coffee maker in the staff break room in the hospital. We also have to consider how we look at our institutional procurement and disposal policies. So this is the Alameda County Library, and they had these library book carts on the loading dock destined for salvage, all because they just had one broken wheel, one bad wobbly wheel. Yeah, the carts were old, but they were made incredibly well. They're very durable. They can hold hundreds of pounds of books. The new ones they were going to buy to replace them were certainly not better, except that they didn't have the one wobbly wheel. And so this idea that nobody thought to think about, well, can we source new wheels for these carts? Like, what does it cost to get another wheel? Or can we take a cart that has 3 good wheels and take those off and fix another 3 carts with those wheels? We have to think more about how we support that throughout our institutional procurement and consumption issues. We're telling our residents and our neighbors and our constituents to be good about this, but we really have to think about how we're doing this as well. And I don't mean to pick on the public sector. I mean, I've given presentations to biotech companies where they're throwing out these $10,000 commercial freezers, and they really should be thinking about repairing them as well. Either as a taxpayer or as a shareholder, we should think about how we are doing that consumption at that level as well. And so here's the big one. During the pandemic, all these school systems bought Chromebooks for distance learning. And we have a situation now where Google has this AUE, automatic update expiry date, which point they stop supporting the Chromebook via software from the cloud. And that's what they've got all the school systems using to manage the Chromebooks, is their online cloud-based system. So once they reach that automatic update expiry system, they're not of any use to the school system. So at this point, the school system's calling somebody up to say, come and take them. And the e-wasters are getting them. But the hardware works fine. And it turns out that you can jailbreak them. And by jailbreaking them, you can make them run another operating system. We need to think about how we keep these items in service in our communities at the highest value possible. I mean, these could be, I don't know, we could start a program where the high schoolers are doing the jailbreaking and then give each of them one when they graduate, or have the students take them home during the summertime, or give them to the unhoused, or somehow use them to close the digital literacy and digital divide that we have right now. But the point is, these devices are from a hardware perspective, they're working fine, and they should stay in our communities. And let's keep the wealth of our communities in our communities. Like I said, it's affecting all different sectors of the economy, and this inability to not repair. Like, you think of farmers as being pretty resilient types, but even they, at this point, the average modern combine or tractor is such a combination of hardware and software that the farmer not only can't fix it, they're not allowed to fix it. I mean, the manufacturers are using the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, the same law that keeps you and I from copying music and movies, and they're using that to enforce their intellectual property rights over the software in the tractor. So that starts to speak to the very nature of ownership. If you can't fix it, if the manufacturer won't give you the diagnostic tools or give you access to the software so you can keep the device running, do you still really own it? It's gotten to the point where the manufacturers have actually argued in court that the farmer no longer buys a tractor. What they buy is a license to operate the tractor. If I had spent $300,000 for a tractor, I don't know if I would like that very much. And for us, for everybody who's got the latest Apple phones, I mean, they have this new thing where the internal components are actually serialized such that they're mated to that specific instance of the phone. So that means that even if you could get a spare part from another, like you could salvage a part from another phone that's the same part and put it into your broken phone, and you try to turn it on, it will not work, because basically the software boots and checks and says, oh, this serial number doesn't match the serial number for the part that I think is supposed to be in here. I'm not going to start. Well, so it's getting harder to repair. We look at that stuff at Fix a Clinic. We think about it and like, how can we, circumvent these things, or how can we start to claim this back? But it shouldn't be this hard. We shouldn't have to be looking through microscopes at electronic components to figure out how to fix them. And so imagine that we have a new future where most of the things that we consume are from our local area and are designed by us for us, so that basically everything we consume is designed, built, serviced, and maintained in a local service area using locally available tools, materials, processes, and services. And so imagine that maybe a complicated thing like that circuit board on the left, which would normally come from a far-flung location like the one pictured on the right, is instead designed and built and maintained in our local service area. And what would that look like? I mean, it's early days still, but there is this idea that manufacturing capabilities that used to be the purview of military defense contractors or large corporations, things that required devices that cost millions of dollars to make. Right now, those devices are coming down to a point where the manufacturing of them could take devices that are tens of thousands or thousands of dollars and might soon be hundreds of dollars. So here's a small example. If this is a desktop circuit board making machine, that would allow us to do this sort of thing locally. And yeah, I grant you it's early days, but I think if we're going to get to zero waste, we have to start thinking about this. And maybe we start with stuff that's not as technical as I've talked about. Maybe we start with something like, can we start making brooms from local straw? How do we create local industry that supports the idea of keeping stuff local rather than taking advantage of this brittle global supply chain that we've been involved with up to this point? And that's why we hold more and more events in conjunction with colleges and universities to teach the next generation of practitioners how to design for durability, maintainability, serviceability, repairability, circularity, alongside design for manufacturing. So there's a sense of repair as being this militant or revolutionary act. I'm gonna stick it to the man, I'm gonna fix my own thing. But really, I think it's really, I don't know, it speaks to this kind of basic thing that we all have, this basic curiosity about the world around us, and especially about the things that we rely on a regular basis. So that whether you're 16 or 60, not only should you be able to repair your own phone, but it should be easy to do it. And it should be obvious, and you should expect to be able to do it, ubiquitous, so that we can have less of this kind of mindless product churn going on and more of this going on. I mean, she's self-actualized, she's inquisitive, she's empowered, she's determined, she's fearless. She's everything we want for ourselves and our shared future. So thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much, Peter. And the whole thing with the Fix It clinics is it's also community building, as you said. So it's amazing. We have a few minutes before we have to launch into our plenary session. So I wonder if there might be some folks that would have some questions or comments. And I'll turn it over to you, Laura, to kind of facilitate. You might have some questions or comments.
We talk a lot. But does anyone have any questions or comments about to Peter? Great director, great movement. I'm looking. Okay, here's one we've got from Alina. What sites are the best locations to host Fix It clinics?
So we tend to favor public libraries because any number of good reasons. They're centrally located, they have good parking. I want to reinvigorate libraries as centers for community engagement and collaboration that's going forward. But the other thing I was trying to convey was this idea that now that we have the online resources, they don't have to be these big monolithic events anymore. That really any place can become an onboarding location for repair. It can be the local high school, like we're trying to encourage. We'd love to have the kids after school basically be that place where people can show up with their broken stuff, and high schoolers can help them work their way through it.
I've got Holly here. How effective is YouTube as a tool with the Fix It movement?
But everybody uses YouTube for everything now, so it's great. It's just that building content or quality content is really hard. I've been approached by any number of people about a Fix It Clinic TV show, but they want drama and conflict, which is not necessarily what I want to do, but can they fix it? Or I've thought about celebrity fixes, like can we go to Beyonce's house and fix her dishwasher, right? Something like that.
That'd be cool. And I've got here, let's see. I've got, do you have pushback from Google or Apple for these Fix-It clinics?
Not well. So I'm going to encourage everybody to go to the repair panel. That's in another hour, I guess. I didn't touch on the right to repair aspect of this at all. I mean, obviously, we have all sorts of business models at all different levels that are interested, whether purposely or not purposely, to maintain the status quo. And I did give a keynote to the IEEE at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas a few years back, and I went right to the belly of the beast, and there I tried to appeal to their basic humanity around this. Basically, look, yes, you make smartphones that you want people to stop using after 2 years, but you've had the blender at home that broke before you expected it to. We've both been, as human beings on the planet, as consumers, we've both been on both sides of this equation. So I don't know how well, I didn't get a chance to get a sense of how well it went over, but yes, it's definitely there. They're definitely, the consumer technology industry associations are definitely fighting hard to try and maintain right to repair at the moment.
So we keep getting some questions in. So here we go. How do you feel if others hold clinics without telling you?
I'm fine with it, but you want to be part of a network. And at this point we have these global fixers, and if you're regional, you want to be part of a regional initiative. You don't want to do your own darn thing. That's my concern, is because we'll never be able to scale without that. And then you can only get the positive effect of your local community. You don't get the benefit of this whole global resource that we have, and to be able to leverage that.
I think, as we all know, as program managers, it's hard to reinvent the wheel. So why use the services and the information you have available. And Peter's blog site has everything you need to know how to do it.
Right. Everything's plug and play now. I've got all the forms. I've got everything up to speed. If you just come to me and say, I want to run a Fix-It clinic on such and such a date, everything's plug and play. You get access to all that stuff right off the bat.
And I totally appreciate that for that. Okay, on a local government level, how can you advocate for better politics to support this? EPR is somewhat helpful, but that's a state level approach. What can city governments do?
Well, the best answer that seems to come to mind is what my thesis professor said, which is that the trick to education is to teach people in such a way that they don't realize they're learning until it's too late. And so you try to use humor, but with this whole thing about sort of appealing to rapid response repair and procurement and stuff, I'm trying to find those people who work in the organization who know that what they're doing could be better than it is. So that, like corporations have policies where they'll give everybody in the company a new computer every 2 years because they want them they want them to feel good about working at the company, but they also feel like it's an efficiency issue or something like that. And I'd like those people to basically be able to step up and say, you know what? I'd rather keep my old computer than have you go spend money on another one. Same thing in government or whatever, whether it's public or private sector. So to support those people in repairing, so that if the coffee maker and the staff break room breaks, rather than just assume I have to go out and buy another one, to say, can we try to fix this first before we make the commitment to go out and buy another one? So just spreading the word that repair is possible would be
another approach. Is to look at their climate plan. This is affected to their climate plan. Every city has to have a climate plan, and many of you have zero waste plans. So develop a repair in your zero waste plan, and there you have it. And so example is that City of Chula Vista in their zero waste plan mentions that Fix-It clinics are essential to move that forward. So it's another way of looking at it. As we keep going, okay, how do you handle safety and liability concerns at the Fix-It clinics?
So that's part of, so we do have a waiver that we ask people to sign. But But backing down from that, and that's interesting you bring it up because we've noticed that with the Europeans, I mean, or the people overseas who have 220 volt versus 110 volt, that we really need to respect the idea that this can be dangerous, especially if you're running 220. But when I show you a smartphone or Bluetooth earbuds, I mean, by far, most of the stuff that we handle is low voltage. And another thing that isn't clear, yeah, we started with an expertise in electronics. We're here in Bay Area, the center of tech. We developed a reputation for being good at that. But look, a fix-a-clinic is kind of like improv. You never know what the general public's going to bring you. So we have this one thing we say, carry in only, no oversized items. That said, it's amazing what people consider to be carry in only.
It's very true.
And,
so one last question.
And then we can see now with the global fixture server, we don't care what size it is. You
keep it at home.
You bring us to it, right?
Okay, one last question for you, and then we have the next session. Are there any particular categories of items that people are most interested in fixing? Sewing machines, vacuum cleaners, electronics, others?
It's like improv. You never know. Anything you've seen in Best Buy or Target,
it's a mixed bag, that's for sure.
Yeah, and then some stuff you haven't seen in Best Buy or Target. That's another story.
It's a vintage library of stuff. It's really cool. And I recommend everyone who has one in their community to join one. It's a really positive energy and a lot of warm and fuzzies because you end up fixing things. And I'm going to talk more about it in my session, but it's a great time. And I thank you, Peter, for spending time with us and talking about your passion. And we appreciate you, and I appreciate you mainly. But thank you.
Thank you for making me the opportunity. It's been a pleasure to be here.
And it looks like there's someone that is asking for a Discord link in the Fix-It-Clinic. So you can go into the chat and do your thing. Thank you, guys. And I think the next session is on our way.
Yeah, thank you both, Peter and Laura. And Chris, you want to bring your panel up here?